walk me through kind of the debate strategy, right? There's a documentary, I think Tucker put out one that kind of shows Trump in the room feeding tweets to some of the aides who are putting it out. Were you involved in that at all? Like what to tweet, when to tweet it, or was it just the outside accounts? And if so, how was that strategy determined going into like something like that big debate with Biden?
Well, the president. So I was still on the during the debate with Biden. I was still on the super PAC side, so I was not involved in any of those discussions. You know, for that part for that debate. So I can't speak on that. But for the Kamala Harris debate, I actually had the fun job of building out a social media war room in Philadelphia where we invited about 30 of our top influencers, and we watched the debate live from Philly, right down the road from the debate, and we were going to tweet in support of the president. And the president, about 2 minutes before he went on stage, decided to FaceTime me, and so I answered the FaceTime, and it's the president, and he said he wants to say hi to all of the influencers. So
You didn't know
he's
that. You didn't. You look down at your phone. I've gotten called.
yeah.
I get the call. I've never gotten a FaceTime.
Yeah. So I get a FaceTime, and so the president pops on. He goes and I literally look at my clock. It's like 8:58 p.m. He's going on stage in 2 minutes, and he goes, "You guys are far more important than anything that's going to be happening out here. Have fun tonight. You guys are going to do great. We're going to be paying attention to what you guys put out, etc." And I'm like, what the heck? So that was the responsibility that I was put in charge of for the debate, kind of the rapid response, the defense, making sure that his message was getting amplified, all of the clips were getting promoted properly, and we had some fun with that. And obviously on the flight in to the debate that day, the president posted about the Springfield, Ohio cats and dogs. So the media was already losing their minds going into that debate, and so we had some fun playing a rapid response that day.
How excited was? I mean, you all of a sudden hold up your phone and you go, "Oh, hey guys, it's the president." How did that go over with all the influencers there?
They were pumped, and the president signed personal letters for each and every one that came, and it was a fun experience. And we have such the luxury. The president has such a luxury of having all of these great supporters with massive platforms that love him genuinely. And we don't need to go pay these people to do anything for us like the Democrats. The Democrats have to pay their influencers to, do whatever for them. But we have all of these people who support us and love the president. And so when the president FaceTimed them, they were all ecstatic because like they have a really personal connection with him. And so they were excited to hear from him. They were appreciative of his words, thanking them for all of their support. And then he went out on stage and he crushed it, created an incredible debate, moment. It was 3-on-1. And that was really the narrative that we were pushing all night, how this was a 3-on-1 debate. The ABC news anchors were terrible. I don't think they should ever be able to host a debate again after that display. But, in real time, we were doing rapid response. And obviously that debate was the Springfield cats and dogs.
Cats and dogs.
One of the most incredible lines in debate history, and the Democrats thought that was going to be what was going to be the crushing blow to the president. But just hours later, it became one of the most viral songs of the year. And then President Trump and Republicans won the Springfield, Ohio township for the first time in the history of that community. And so
I didn't know. No, wait. I never knew that. If you listen to the media, Alex, it was like like the mayor was against Trump, but I didn't realize that he actually won Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, the president won Springfield, Ohio, actually by a sizable margin, and you'll never hear that in the media. And so they wanted you to think that the president's posting of memes would have cost him the election. But again, they're totally out of touch, and it became a cultural moment. That cats and dogs line became an incredible song. and they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. So like that went crazy viral on TikTok, and I think it was totally unintentional that he said it in that rhythm, and then it just went crazy. But
And
uh,
did you jump on that? Like, did you know at that moment you're like, we got to amplify this? This is huge.
well, I was absolutely amplifying that song. That was an incredible song. But the Democrats were trying to make it the massive, like the crushing blow to the president, but everybody else in the world was having fun with it. And the Democrats just came across as so angry, and Republicans came across as a little bit more fun. And fun plays
Yeah.
better on social media.
Yes, I will agree with you. But this is so. There's two pieces to this that I think are fascinating. Number one, you point out like if you listen to the media, whatever, Democrats have their A game on and all these people, and you're right, that's not what the reality is. Like they pay for their social media influencers. They don't get the viral moments in the backup. Like Trump as a 78-year-old president and nominee embraces this. And I just think it's funny how that's not what you would assume is the case. You got the younger, hipper, well, at least fake hipper, Kamala Harris, and yet they blow it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was another thing that I found to be entertaining was the Democrats kept calling Kamala like the young face, right? But like Kamala's 60, and 60 is younger than 78, but 60 is not young. So she's not like in touch with the youth like they tried to claim she was. They acted like she was like a 35-year-old up and coming politician. I mean, she's 60 years old and she's been in politics for 35 years. And so she totally wasn't in touch. The president is very in touch with cultural moments. He's very in touch with what's happening in pop culture, and he knows. And he also has something that the kids call aura or Riz. And so, he kind of leans into he identifies what is kind of like a viral trend, and he kind of leans into it. And he has a really unique way to put his own twist on some of these moments and some of these things. But he's very in touch with the pop culture. He pays attention to who's popular, who's not. He leans into certain issues. He's got great political instincts. He picked on Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
And so uh, like everybody said, "Oh, Trump can't touch Taylor Swift. She's an icon. She's an icon." But by this time, when Donald Trump posted in all caps, "I hate Taylor Swift," right? The Democrats thought, "Oh my God, every young girl in America is going to come out and vote against Donald Trump." Trump's instincts on that were right. The very next day, ABC came out with a poll that said Taylor Swift's endorsement, does it help or hurt Kamala Harris? 7% said helps, 8% says hurts, and the rest said we don't care about Taylor Swift. And so, like, the president pays attention to these cultural trends, and uh, he always seems to be on the right side of these things. And so he just recently was involved in the cultural news when he talked about Shador Sanders and him sliding in the draft. So he's very on top of these things. And it's quite remarkable, as you mentioned, for a 78-year-old man.
Well, I mean, on the Shador Sanders thing, he was obviously that's a sports thing, but like when you talk about culture and like who's up and who's down, is it Barron Trump that's giving him insight into this? Because that's what the press tells you. That Barron Trump is the sort of the cultural young person whisperer. Is he reading Us Weekly? What is it that keeps him in touch? Is it Alex Bruesewitz? Is it someone else saying, "Hey, I want to show you this"? Like, I just that's what I find him fascinating because I know what he reads in terms of newspapers,
Yeah.
but where is he getting this information and how influential is Barron?
Well, I don't want to speak on the president's relationship, with his son, but Barron is very on top of these things. He's very smart. Just like every other 19-year-old, they're very plugged into these types of things. But I'll point to the Aiden Ross interview, for example. Uh, the president listens to people that he views to be experts in certain fields or demographics, whatever. So before we did the Aiden Ross interview, I was having a conversation with the president, and I was like, "There's a rapper. His name's Young Thug, and he's being treated unfairly by Fannie Willis." And he goes, I've heard of this. I've heard of Young Thug. Remember or remind me of. And I told him the case, etc. And he goes, yeah, that's right. It's not right. It's not right. It's what's happening. He is being treated unfairly. And then a couple of days go by. And then Aiden Ross, and I don't bring it up again. Aiden Ross brings up, he goes, so my friend Young Thug, he's in jail. And Trump interjects, he's not being treated fairly. We need to treat Young Thug fairly. And that clip goes crazy viral, gets 40 million views. And so the president, he hears things, he does research on things, he learns more about it, he talks to people about these certain things, and then I think he makes up his opinion that way.
When you look back on the list of these podcasts that you guys did, let's just start with an easy. Is there one of the interviews, Aiden Ross, Theo Vaughn, the Nelk Boys? I know that was right before you. Joe Rogan, Impulsive. Is there one that you thought, hey, that one really made an impact?
Yeah, I think the Theo Vaughn one was really impactful. I think it was very humanizing of the president. It was very tough for the Democrats to talk about how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and he is basically this fascist figure when Donald Trump is joking and laughing about cocaine with Theo Vaughn, right? So in a split screen, when the Democrats, because at that time they were still trying to use this, Donald Trump is a monster narrative, but they started to not be able to use that anymore the more we showcase the president in these formats, because they're like, this guy's like a hilarious dude. He's like a normal guy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the Theo Vaughn one was impactful. That was in early August. And then I think in October, when the president sat down with a guy named Andrew Schulz on that podcast, the Flagrant podcast, I think that was a really solid one. It again showcased the president's humor a little bit more. Andrew Schulz has a very left-leaning audience because Andrew Schulz also has a podcast with Charlemagne, who is very left-leaning. And so the president went into this environment, and he did very well. He did a great job of kind of winning over this center left-leaning audience and making it more in his corner. So I think the Andrew Schulz one was fantastic. It's where he introduced the term "the weave," where the president talks. Oh my God,
that's where that. Yeah.
Where the president talked about how he goes from one topic, takes a break, talks about another topic, but then comes back to his original topic and finishes his thought. And so he introduced that topic or that there. He also talked about the art of nicknaming his opponents, and kind of let the audience in on some backstory about how he wasn't a big fan of the nickname Tampon Tim because it didn't pew, and when you have a nickname it needs to pew. So we had some incredible content, and then obviously the Joe Rogan podcast. I mean, 3.5 hours long, and it was fun because we kind of did one podcast a week for the final 4 months of the campaign, and then the final shebang that we did was Joe Rogan. And
is there one that you wish you had done?
Well, I think, we had a lot of outreach from a lot of these different podcasts. One I'm glad that we avoided completely was Call Her Daddy. And she ended up lying about us. She did this podcast
That's what her name, Alex
Cooper.
Hilbert. And she's the one that the Kamala team spent $100,000 to rebuild her set on.
Right. And Alex Cooper, her team reached out to us, and I never responded to her. And then after the election, she obviously got some blowback from her audience for having Kamala on and not having Trump on, et cetera, et cetera. And so after the election, she did a sit-down interview with New York Times, and she said, we had conversations with Donald Trump's team about making this happen. That conversation never took place. So we never had a conversation with her. We never entertained it because, she would have been very hostile. Like we went into interviews and this is another thing I find to be hilarious, is how the media has covered the podcast circuit we went on as this right-wing manosphere. All of these people at one point or another were critical of President Trump in that same year, in that same calendar year. And most of these people were Democrat voters in 2016 and 2020. And so we were open to doing interviews that we knew were not going to be 100% friendly, but I was never going to put the president in a situation where the interview was going to be 100% hostile. And Alex Cooper would have been 100% hostile. She's not an equal opportunity critic. She only she's had podcasts over the years where she's very nasty towards the president. No podcast at all being remotely critical of the Democrats. And so that would have been very foolish to put the president on that one. And so we decided not to. I didn't even respond to the lady. And then she goes and says that she had a Zoom call with me, and I've never talked to this person in my life.
Oh, so it wasn't even like Team Trump. It was, I had a call with Alex Bruesewitz.
No, she said Team Trump. Yeah.
Okay. But you know that there's no one else to talk to her.
There would be nobody else that was spearheading that lane on our team.
Right. Okay. That's fascinating. All right. Well, this is great to know. Is there another female that you were considering that you would have done?
Well, we had a really awesome, we were very, I guess, male top heavy in the podcast space, but the entire podcast industry is very dominated by male voices. It's just the way it is. But we did have a really fun meetup with two girls. They have a podcast called Girls Gone Bible. And
they were at that Trump rally. I did not. I met them at I saw them. I didn't meet them at the Trump rally during the inauguration. They are fantastic.
Yep. They are fantastic, and they have a massive platform, and they do these live shows all across the country where they get 500 to 1,000 young girls that come and listen to them talk about how, their life has led them to find Jesus. And they're very passionate and impactful speakers. And I invited them to meet the president in October in Las Vegas. And they came and they prayed over the president, and they made a TikTok video went incredibly viral of that moment. And so, would have loved to had the president sit down more formally with them. But I'm glad that we got to do that TikTok. But
go ahead.
No, I was
just going to say, how do you rate how the White House is continuing this effort in terms of influencers and podcasters?
Well, it's a lot different. But they're doing a great job. The president is very focused on presidential duties right now. And so he hasn't done any sit-down interviews with podcasters since taking office, but he, has been very welcoming to, celebrity personalities coming to the Oval Office. For example, I was recently there with actor Vince Vaughn, and we had a great day with Vince and the president. I recently went golfing with Saquon Barkley, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley, and the president, and we spent all day with him, and we got great press out of that. Conor McGregor, we took Conor McGregor to the White House not too long ago, and so the president is very welcoming and bringing some of these more high profile voices in. And what's a big difference between this administration and the previous and the president's first term was that these types of people are willing to actually go to the White House this time. Yeah. And so that's exciting. But as far as the team's going, like Taylor Budowich, one of the smartest guys that I know, he's one of the best guys that I know as well. He's been very supportive of me in my career. And he was a very impactful player early on with, suggesting that I kind of take the lead on the podcast role on the campaign. But he's a brilliant person running comms over there. Stephen Chung is also one of the smartest and best guys that I've ever worked with. Like, the guy is hilarious. He's made history. I like to tell everybody every time I'm around Stephen, I make sure that people know that he's the first communications director in White House history to get the word cuck added into the presidential records. And when he called Tim Walz a cuck accurately. So he's incredible. Caroline is obviously doing a great job. Kaylin Dorr, who is now running the White House social media team, is fantastic. And then Alex Pfeiffer, who oversees the rapid response 47 team and other comms efforts. Like that comms team is brilliant, fantastic. And I think it would be 1,000% great if Sean Spicer just went back in there too.
Dude, you were on such a roll for a second. I appreciate that. You see the blood in my face. The president said that to me the day I left. He said, Sean, you look so much healthier. And I said, sir, that's with all due respect. That's because you. Let me ask you one last question on a policy issue, because this is so fascinating. I get the president's use of TikTok as a means to communicate to young people. I in its current form, believe it is a tool of the Chinese Communist Party. How do we balance those needs, to me, of wanting to make sure that we communicate with young people, but also recognizing that this is a tool of the communist Chinese government to influence us and to infiltrate us?
Yeah, that's certainly the belief of many in our country, and the president takes that concern seriously, and that's why he is working to, uh, negotiate a great deal that takes TikTok out of the hands of these bad actors and gets it controlled by an American company. And so I think the platform itself, it needs to be protected because it's one of the most impactful campaign tools that we've ever seen before. We do substantially better on that platform than the Democrats, quite frankly. And I think the Democrats were all in favor of TikTok up until they started getting smoked on there. And then all of a sudden, Biden's like, "Oh, it's a national security threat." Meanwhile, his son is the real national security threat. But the New York Times came out with a public sentiment analysis on TikTok in a few months before the ban came out, and it showed that through 2 million posts that were studied, Donald Trump, 70% of those 2 million posts were Donald Trump friendly, and only 30% were friendly to Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden looks at that, and maybe in his one lucid moment in the entire administration, he's like, okay, this is not good for me. And then he signs the ban. So, there's a lot of questions that I have about how that TikTok ban actually came about. But the Democrats love TikTok up until they start getting smoked on there. And so I think it's a really important platform. I think the president and his team are still working diligently to make sure that we get the best deal possible. I'm optimistic that we will get a deal. But until then, we're going to use the platform to get the president's message out. And the Democrats are also using it. Like Joe Biden signed the TikTok ban, but he started a Joe Biden for president account. So, like, if he thought it was a national security issue, why is he posting on there? So there's a lot of these questions that I have. I think that a lot of Americans have about it. And so protecting TikTok is something that most young people want. And I think a lot of America wants.
Okay. Alex Bruesewitz, I love this conversation. Thank you for joining us and sharing all this insights with us. I could go on for hours, but I'm not allowed unless you want to give me a bigger podcast and promote it. But thank you for everything that you've done for the president and for the team and just how generous you've been with your time. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You bet.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.